Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Book to Block, the series where I bring my fantasy novel to life in Minecraft, one block at a time. In the last episode, we finally started our big mega project of the volcano city over here. And in today's episode, I think I'm going to work on these walls over here. And I'm not just going to work on these walls, I'm going to do another episode sort of like I did with my paths video and my bridges video, where I give you a couple different types that maybe you might want to add to your worlds. So let's get over to my planning area. Alright, to get these ones out of the way, these are two of the ones that I've used in my village builds. So this is the kind of, not so much a wall, more of like a fence, but more of like an advanced fence. Because in Minecraft, you are 2 blocks tall, so this is slightly taller than that. So it's like a between a fence and a wall. So for this one, I laid this at the very beginning of my village episode when I was doing the wall. So it's just got these wooden logs on either side, kind of as the posts in between. And then using kind of cobblestone, I did a mix of the mossy and the regular. This one's just the mossy, but mix between just the cobblestone on the bottom and then alternating of cobblestone and then the wall, just for a bit of depth in the build. Then using these kind of dark oak fences, kind of as like an accent, just the different colors work well together on this. And then on each of the posts, I added a bit of lighting. This is for more of a kind of rundown, not so like a built up kind of city. That's why I used it on my village. That's not like in the middle of wartime that needs to be super advanced. It's kind of just keep out like wild animals and such. Next one is the one I used from my farming district. So this one is a little less advanced than the main village one because it's not helping like all the people. It's just to keep out critters and such from the fields and that kind of thing. I went for a different kind of lighting on this one, using kind of the trapdoors to hold in the lantern instead of just being floating in the air like this. You can swap that out if you wanted to have maybe a campfire, because that adds a little bit of a different type of lighting. Problem with that is it adds in the smoke. You can remove that by adding in more blocks, but even this you can see it just passes straight through. So for this one, if you don't want this kind of smoke, maybe stick with either a lantern or going with a torch. And then for this one, I went with the same kind of idea of having these posts every so often, and then the connecting bits in between. In the episode that I did the farming district, I kind of explained how this was, so I'll just do a quick little rant on this one. So I decided to go with the cobblestone on the bottom and then the tuff on top because tuff doesn't get used quite as much, or it's not as recognizable in Minecraft since it's much newer than the cobblestone texture. So I use this for the depth again. That's a big thing for my builds. I always want to go in with a different depth so it's not kind of flat always like this here. And then it's just a very basic one because like I said, it's not fortifying a city or anything. It's just to protect some crops. Alright, and here are some of the other types of walls that I've kind of planned for this video. So I'll start over on this side with the most kind of basic one. So this one's kind of like a broken down ruined wall. So like maybe from a very old civilization that you build that kind of just, it's just cobblestone, mossy cobblestone, using the different walls, stairs, and slabs, just add a bit of texture to it. So for this one, it's just kind of, you don't need to do much thought to it. I made sure to add both sides. It's just kind of plan it out and then just kind of break it down. You don't want it to be too kind of uniform. You can kind of see I accidentally got these bits too often. So maybe just add like this. You can also add like bits like this where you kind of have little gaps where it's kind of falling apart. This one's just not too complicated. You kind of just don't think too much. Just throw some blocks on the ground and then that's your wall. Not every build has to be super complicated with every bit of detail. Sometimes bits of your world need to be forgotten about in a way. Next up is this kind of deserty one. So in all of my videos where I do multiple different things like the paths and then the bridges, I always have kind of a deserty one because that's kind of a major biome in all sorts of kind of fantasy or real world builds. So for this one, it's just very basic. I'm going in with this kind of the sandstone and then having an arch and then having these kind of little bits just to break up. So I got the sandstone wall with the slabs here just to break up a little bit. And then on the back, I'm using the kind of smooth sandstone with a little bit of a lip here made by the stairs, just upside down stairs here, just so it's not too flat of a wall. And then went in with the kind of birch because that always goes well with the like kind of sandy color. And then the logs up here, you could make it go back like this if you wanted to have it kind of like as a support. And then using these mud brick slabs. So just kind of a little bit more detail on that. For most of these kinds of builds, what I do is I make like just a section. So for it, I have my two kind of side bits and then like a 3-bit for a bit of detail. And then you can kind of tile it across. This is kind of for like larger builds. If you're doing a smaller build, you can kind of give a bit more character to your builds. You can maybe have it slightly different, maybe lower this bit down, like the little lip I've got here down a bit, have it go up and down just so it looks not so uniform. But if you're kind of doing like a huge build like I'll be doing later in this video, you kind of want to keep it consistent because it's not like you want it to be super unique because then you're going to be spending hours and hours on something that no one ever is going to notice. I also added in just a little bit of detail in with like just the desert area. Of course, all of this in front of it would be kind of the sand, but just to give you an idea, I went in through most of these and just added a bit of lighting. When you're doing this for real, you probably don't want to have too much lighting, so you can kind of knock out and have it slightly less often. And then you can kind of worry about the inside. So for this, you want to have kind of like an area where you can stand and look over the wall. So if you have anyone guarding the wall, and then you can also make this hollow and have it kind of where I've got with this one, I'll show you that in a second, where it's got like an internal bit of it. Or if you just want it to be a flat wall that nothing's going to get through, you can kind of keep it solid and then decorate the backside of it. Alright, next up is this kind of wooden stone wall. So I've kind of gone along with these spruce logs, kind of like how I did all my builds, like with the village housing. Kind of make the perimeter and kind of build out the kind of structure you want with the wood and then fill in the gaps with your other building block, in this case the stone bricks. So I've gone in with these walls and then the fences. If you notice, if I just recreate this here, these don't connect. So what you have to do is you go in with either the Tinker for Axiom, or if you have like a debug stick in the regular Minecraft, you can go in and connect these just for a little bit more, kind of just a build difference. Then I like to go up like this so it just connects better, because if you see this, it doesn't quite connect properly. If you want that kind of curve, then that might work, but for this one, I want it to be flat across. After this, I went in just a little bit stair, brick, stair, just for a bit more depth into the build. And then at the bottom here, I'm using the decorated pot and then a little pot inside. Can't really see it, but I guess that moves it. So if I just grab this flower plot instead, so what you do is you place the decorated plot, and then you can either shift click onto it or click on the block behind it, and that places in there. It doesn't change the look too much, but then that allows you to put a flower, so it's kind of a larger flower pot. I then added in these leaves with the trapdoors, kind of like just a little bit decoration. So this isn't quite like more of a fortified wall, it's more of just like maybe inside your city. And then add in these fences and a little bit on top, so you can kind of patrol the wall with the kind of guardrail on top with the lighting as well. Alright, next is this kind of just very basic stone one, so you'd see it in like kind of a castle wall of sorts. So it's kind of got these ramped out bits here, a nice basic kind of crenellations on top with the lighting, using these kind of the chiseled ones as like little accents on each bit. Then going in again with the depth I keep talking about, so using the walls, and then one further back is just the stone brick. And then use these kind of stairs, just a little bit more depth and detail. So what you can do is you can maybe move these up and down one. So if I were to go like this, like I said earlier, if you want a little bit of variation in your build, I just kind of made a very basic one to be repeated over and over just to show you what the kind of whole thing will look like together as one large build. I also added in these kind of stairs, upside down stairs up here, just to kind of get a little bit more curvature in the build itself. Alright, and finally this kind of darker build. So this is actually the wall that I'll be using for my volcano city, since it's using the black stone that the kind of volcano is made of, so it's kind of, the wall is also formed from what the ground has been turned into. So for this one, I kind of went in with these chains because it kind of works well. The color, kind of like, it's like a grayish, almost blue color, and it works well accenting all of this black stone. I went up with these kind of the soul lantern instead of the regular one, just because the blue works a little bit better than these super bright, kind of the yellowish lanterns. Going in, I kind of brought it out just a little bit with these walls to the holding with the chains, and then just using the different types of stairs with the blocks, just as a way of adding more of that depth without going too far back. One of the tricky parts that you're going to have with any of these walls is if you don't have it as flat. So like as you can see here, these are all just very flat walls. They're not going in any kind of direction like this. Once you kind of get into this, you kind of have to make a choice. You either have to completely abandon having these like repeating sections, or you have to figure out a way to kind of inset them. So for like these ones, I've got it going 5 and then from point to point 5, so 3 in between each. So I've got my wall, and then you can go like this, and that's how you can kind of make it curved. But once you, like for what I have in mind, it's a very kind of odd circle shape. It's harder to get these kind of like aligning with what your builds for these. So for those ones, you either have to redesign it so that you can tile it like these, or you have to redesign your wall to match the kind of shape of your build so that it can be kind of a little more messy, because if it's not going to be a structured wall like this, it's got to be more messy, sort of like what I did with these guys. I kind of allowed them to break the format that I kind of templated with these, and I kind of allowed it to kind of get a little bit messy just because I didn't want it to look too uniform of a build. However, for this one, I'm going to have to redesign that kind of quick wall I made of diamond blocks in last episode to maybe follow something along the lines of this, just so I can kind of keep a structured build, because it's a built-up city, not a small little village on the outskirts. Alright, here we are back at the volcano city. So as I mentioned, these are kind of like randomly placed walls. So I'm going to have to remove them and then place in my new ones. But what I was talking about is like how random they are. Because I used the kind of pathing tool with like these based of the diamond blocks, it kind of just randomly placed them. And at some points, it didn't actually place them on the ground. As you can see, there's a bit of gap here. And then sometimes like the curve just doesn't work. It's kind of more random. So I'll have to make them a little bit more uniform. Kind of like what I did with this main village, with kind of having straight walls along this side. So I'll probably have to do something like that for this, just so that it feels a bit more sturdy and thought of, instead of kind of just some sticks and stones thrown together to make a wall. As you can see here, this is where I was kind of doing my prototyping with the walls. Over here, I was trying to do what I did with this, with the path tool. You kind of turn it into your, with this. So if you go to your path, instead of a sphere, you can do your custom clipboard. So whatever you copied last on your clipboard turns into what the wall's made of. Problem with this is you can't quite get like a repeating pattern, because it kind of just does whatever it wants, and then it also doesn't work too well when you like kind of change the elevation and such. So this was kind of just a way of testing different little techniques. So I think I'm going to kind of go with this. So this is what I just showed earlier, but maybe spread it out a little bit. I'm thinking of having it like this, but maybe changing the internal, so not having the same chain every single time. But what first I'm going to do is going to do it just kind of like how this is, with just blank, and then go in later and add in the kind of little details afterwards. So I'm going to have to go in and remove all the diamond and kind of plan out a new shape. So it's not going to be a perfect circle, or if it is, I'm going to have to figure out a way to kind of where to shape it around, where to remove bits, and then kind of how to plan the whole thing. So let's get to planning that now. Alright, so I'm here looking at the whole city from the top, and I've kind of grabbed in a shape here. So I'll just use the shape tool, flat, and then a regular polygon. I'm just changing the sides, just to kind of get an idea of what I kind of want for the wall shape. So once it gets up to this side, this kind of looks flat up here, but if I were to go in real close, you can see that it's not actually flat at all. It just looks flat because it's such a large shape. I'm going at 600 for the width because this is like a larger build. But for this is just a good way of kind of getting an idea for the shape of your kind of build. Since I wanted to have these kind of more flat edges, I'll go around till at least some of them are completely flat. And then I'll just kind of go around with however I want it. So as you can see over on the right side here, So here is the entrance, so where we got the village. And then over on this side, we've got the tunnel. So the tunnel's on this side, the left side over here. You can see where the kind of amethyst is poking through on that point there. So I kind of got to choose where I want the most flat bits. So if I can help it, I want it to be flat on both the entrance sides. So I might just adjust the walls. So this might kind of work here. I'll probably go around and maybe smooth out some bits, but I think I want it to be kind of the flat sides. Like I said, it's a built-up city. You want it to be uniform. So now that I kind of got an idea of the shape, let's get to building it. Alright, so here we are. I've done most of the wall. I've still got a little bit of detailing to do on this side, but it is taking forever. I'm really regretting doing all of this extra little detail with the stairs and such. It's hard to kind of copy and paste, especially since not all of these are equal in size. Like you can see this one is 4, whilst this is 5. So doing copy and pasting is quite difficult, especially on these edge bits, when it's kind of like on an angle like this. So the next thing I have to work on is bringing it down to the ground. So I've got to kind of ready the ground because I've got all these holes from the previous wall that have been kind of excavated. So I need to smooth out everything. So I'll probably have to move this so it doesn't get adjusted when I'm using like the smooth tool and such. And then I've got to bring it down to the ground. Right now it's all at the same like Y level. So that's going to be a problem when it's coming to parts that are different elevations. Like see this bit here, I'm going to have to figure out how to bring it down all the way. It'll be just lowering it down bit by bit until it's all on the ground. This will kind of help with it not being such like a flat area. It'll help kind of just expand it, make it look a little bit nicer. So now let's get to bringing it down to the ground. Alright, here we are. It's mostly down on the ground. Got a couple pieces like this one that I removed so that the lava could be unimpeded by a wall. In the time lapse you kind of saw I was finishing off a little bit on the top bits over on this side because it wasn't quite finished yet. But what we have to get to now is the entrances. So I've already got the one near the lava lake just cut out there. But now I've got to figure out the main one because this is the village and then to the mountains. So it needs to be slightly larger than just like a tiny little gate like this one. So I'm thinking of using these kind of bits on the center where I've got the chisels and the chain as just to cut off. So I can kind of cut off in between. So I think here will be a good starter for the left side. So let's pop that off there. So about that much. So we want to go at least to here. Maybe I'll make it a little bit bigger afterwards, but this much. So I'll go over and I'll now delete all this. Use the eraser tool. Grab up. This is kind of how I did all the moving, but I used the moving tool instead. And there we go. So I can kind of drag this down now. I'll show you how I was doing it. Just trying to get the specific parts down, and then having to do that for every time it went down slightly more, making sure I don't miss out on any of the bits. There we go. And there we go. So now that's down on the ground as well. So I think I'm going to have kind of a over bit so that they can walk across. I still have to thicken the wall because right now it is a very thin wall, not protective of anything. I'll probably have it around 3 to maybe 5 thick so that I can have kind of, I've already started with the walkway using the slabs, the brick slabs here. So I'll just bring it out a little bit like this so that it can be, well, stood upon, because if it's too thin, there's no way you can patrol that kind of wall. So I'm going to make kind of an arch over here, kind of a gatehouse sort of thing, and then I have to add a little bit more detail, which I've been spending quite a bit of time on, a little bit more than I'd like, but I thought it was a little more fun to add some statues. So I kind of worked a little bit on this kind of dwarvish statue. I'll have one either side of the gate. Feels a little bit big, but you got to go big for these kind of statues if you want any kind of detailing. So you can just fly around a little bit. I'm not the happiest with it, but since this is the kind of first ever statue I've ever actually built in Minecraft to this kind of scale, not being like a 5 block tall, I think I did all right. If I end up doing a lot more statues in the future, I may come back and adjust this one a little bit and make it a little bit better. But I'm going to have one on either side, have the gatehouse, same for on this side. So I'll have to take out a chunk here. Since this is the entrance, I might shift it over a little bit and have the entrance over closer to this side. But since this is the walls episode and not the kind of gatekeepers episode, I'll leave that for another episode down the road. I spent quite a bit of time on this one, hours and hours doing this wall. A lot more than I had planned. Yeah, I thought it would be a lot easier using maybe something like the path tool like I did with the diamond walls, but with the extra detail it is much more difficult to do, so I'll have to leave that for a future episode. So if you've enjoyed today's episode, please leave a like and subscribe for more episodes coming soon. Until next time.